Adventure bikes have been getting smaller recently, and Yamaha has largely led the way in this regard, as evidenced by my own bike, the Tenere 700. If you want to go off-road, lighter is better, and my T7 is pretty good at going off the beaten path, better than the 1200 plus cc adventure bike class. But one motorcycle that does not get much attention these days is the bigger Tenere, the Super Tenere 1200 ES, which I recently had the opportunity to test and put some big miles on. And man, it reminded me of why these big ADV bikes are still so popular. So is the old Super T still a relevant motorcycle in a world of shrinking adventure bikes? Stay tuned for the deets, and as always, if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe, like the video, and share it with friends. When Long Way Round first came out in the early 2000s, Ewan and Charlie decided to do their around-the-world ride on the big GS bikes, which are plenty comfortable on pavement and gravel, but fell somewhat short of being effective off-road weapons for getting through places that did not have a great road network. One can't help to wonder if the trip would not have been much easier on a pair of Kawasaki KLR 650s or Suzuki DR 650s. But are big adventure bikes these days really expected to be good off-roaders, or have they essentially become the new sport tourers with the ability to tackle the occasional gravel or dirt road? I would argue that this is the case. People get big ADV bikes to cross continents on pavement and explore some light off-road areas, which is how I rode the Super Tenere 1200 ES. So what makes this bike stand out among its competition? Value, plain and simple. In the US, the Super T costs $16,300 MSRP, while in Canada it runs $19,400 Canadian. But get this, in Canada it includes the lockable aluminum cases, each of which hold 35 liters of stuff. That's wild considering that the BMW R1250 GS costs almost $24,000 Canadian MSRP, and I've seen dealers selling them for as high as $33,000. And that doesn't include the side cases. In addition to this, the Super Tenere includes a whole lot of equipment as standard that you would have to pay for from other manufacturers. Check out this list of standard goodies. Cruise control, electronically adjustable suspension, traction control, engine guards, heated grips, tubeless ready spoked wheels, brush handguards, adjustable windshield, skid plates, center stand, luggage rack, and one feature big ADV riders love, maintenance-free shaft drive. Did I forget anything? Oh yeah. Valve adjustment intervals, 42,000 kilometers. To put that into perspective, you can ride around the world before you need to adjust your valves. Japanese reliability and crazy value with all the equipment you'll need for your own cross-continent adventure. So on paper, this sounds awesome, but how does it ride? Let's start with the engine, a liquid-cooled 1199cc parallel twin with a 270-degree crank that puts out about 110 horsepower and 86 pound-feet of torque. Because of that crank, it sounds like a V-twin. And reminds me of my old Moto Guzzi Stelvio NTX, which had a lot of character. The Yamaha is a bit more refined and slightly more powerful than the Guzzi. It's not as powerful as the competition from BMW, Triumph, KTM, Harley-Davidson, and Ducati, but 110 horsepower is plenty to cruise the highway at whatever speed you want and make a quick pass on a 2-lane, downshifting optional. And in terms of torque and performance at low revs, it's right up there with the competition. The shaft drive is a welcome feature as it means no chain cleaning on long tours, and I detected no shaft jacking effect while accelerating hard. However, while slowing down, the lack of a slipper clutch makes itself felt as the bike does give you a bit of a wiggle if you don't match your revs on the downshifts. This motorcycle made me aware that I've gotten lazy with rev matching on my downshifts from riding bikes with slipper clutches. The weight of the Super T is often cited as a drawback, as the bike is listed at 584 pounds or 265 kilograms wet, not including the bags and mounting hardware. Personally, having owned the Moto Guzzi Stelvio, which was heavier, I found the Yamaha manageable. The weight becomes an issue at slow speeds in parking lots or while making U-turns, but disappears as soon as the bike is rolling faster. With a rather tall and wide adjustable seat, which switches between 33.3 and 34.3 inches, 845 and 870 millimeters, this bike is not for small riders. It is tall and top-heavy, so if you're less experienced or smaller of stature, I would not recommend such a huge motorcycle. with those blue Crocs.
Hang on. Almost.
You got it? You got it?
Nope. Okay, wait.
Hey, look at that. Look at that, it's made for you. However, larger and more experienced riders should have no issues. The big Tenere holds 23 liters of fuel, which will take you about 400 kilometers or 250 miles as long as you're not revving it to the moon on the twisty roads, and that makes it an excellent touring bike. The seating position is natural with plenty of legroom. The bars are a bit low for me in the standing position, and I find my own Tenere 700 much better in this regard. The seat is wide and roomy for rider and passenger. It is slightly soft for my taste, but this is a very personal thing. You'll either like the big seat or have plenty of money to spring for an aftermarket one because the Super T comes standard with so many things that cost extra on other bikes. It is definitely a good motorcycle for two-up travel. Wind protection is excellent from the wide fairing, and the windshield is manually adjustable, although it requires tools to move it up or down. Personally, I'd opt for Yamaha's accessory tall windshield, as at 6 feet tall, I still found myself cleaning bugs off my helmet even with the shield in top position. I prefer to clean windshields, not helmets. The cruise control works well, and the bike is a comfortable lounge chair on the highway with its considerable weight keeping it stable and steady even in crosswinds or buffeting from large trucks. The electronically adjustable suspension with 7.5 inches of travel front and back makes this thing easy to dial in. On the Super T, you can choose between a soft, standard, or hard ride, and then specify whether you want it set for rider, rider with bags, rider with passenger, or rider with passenger and bags. Adjusting these with the press of a button is amazing, and it makes you wonder why you would ever want to do it manually. When the pavement gets twisty, the Super Tenere tracks steady around corners and is very confident and stable on the side of its tires. You can hit some extreme lean angles on this thing in long sweepers, and I was startled when the pegs touched down because I didn't think I was leaning that far. This motorcycle makes the speed feel undramatic. In tight twisties, the weight begins to tell, and quick side-to-side transitions aren't as brisk as on the Tenere 700, but that's true for all the big bikes. The big Tenere can be hustled through the corners at some serious speeds, and on pavement feels a bit more stable at a lean than the Africa Twin Adventure Sports. This may be due to the Super T sporting a smaller, pavement-friendly 19 and 17-inch wheel set. The wheels do have a tubeless option and are properly spoked, as all adventure wheels should be. The looks of this bike are typical of this class of adventure motorcycles. Form follows function, and the Super T looks big and wide because it is big and wide. The LED headlights are similar to the Tracer 9, and the proportions look good. None of these bikes look stylish in my opinion, but the Super T does strike a ruggedly purposeful pose, though it's meant for adventure, not posing. As stated earlier, I appreciate the center stand, which makes it much easier to change a flat. The bash plate is small and plastic, but it is included. If you're doing more serious off-roading, I'd suggest a bigger one. The heated grips are a must-have here in Canada, as they can add weeks to your riding season. The brush guards keep the wind off your hands but are plastic, so if you plan on frequently dropping this thing off-road, I'd upgrade to bark busters. The engine guards are small and much more compact than the monster ones on my Tenere 700, and I commend Yamaha on keeping them light and making them look integrated. The Super Tenere comes standard with a luggage rack on which you can mount a good-sized top box and which gives this bike some serious carrying capacity. It's amazing how much camping gear you can pack on these big ADV bikes, as I found out with my Moto Guzzi. Finally, the Super T has one feature which many riders view as a must-have in a big adventure motorcycle: shaft drive. When you're riding off-road and the muck is flying, it is really nice to know that you don't have to clean a chain. BMW and Triumph offer shaft drive on their big bikes, while Honda, Harley, Ducati, and KTM don't, which disqualifies them in the eyes of many Gore-Tex bros. But the Super Tenere is an adventure bike, so I know you've been wondering how it does off-road. And the answer is, pretty good, as long as you don't ask too much of it. Clearly, it's not a dirt bike. I took it on gravel roads, and even when the gravel got deep and loose, the bike tracked fine. I went on some dirt logging roads way deep into the wilderness, and the big Yamaha ate up all of the ruts and bumps no problem. I hit a bumpy, unkept dirt road leading into a hidden campsite, and again, not as much as one tense moment. Keep in mind, I rode the bike slow and well within my capabilities. I took it on a rougher, rockier ATV trail and it soaked it up too. After that, I figured I didn't want to test my luck anymore with a bike that wasn't mine, so I didn't push it. I have a feeling that the Super T could handle more, but with this much weight, this is a bike you don't ride off-road. It rides you. That's a whole lot of mass and power on the move through the bush, and one misstep could lead to trying to lift a 600-pound motorcycle in the middle of nowhere. I'd appreciate a softer off-road mode to navigate the tight stuff. I'd also appreciate the ability to turn off ABS for off-road use, as it can get you into trouble on dirt, especially on downhills. But let's be real, most owners will never take this bike beyond the gravel or a smooth dirt road, and in those kinds of situations the big Tenere does well. Now that I have a dedicated enduro bike, I find myself less and less willing to even take my T7 onto the rougher trails. It's so much easier on a proper bike, and ADV bikes aren't really designed for it. Everything is a trade-off, and pavement comfort, which the Super Tenere offers in plenty, comes at the price of off-road performance. One of the criticisms of the Super Tenere is that it's dated. Yamaha has updated this model, but those are incremental improvements rather than a ground-up redesign like Triumph's new Tiger 1200. The display is old school, though it is perfectly functional. I like that Yamaha includes a dedicated switch for changing power modes. The menus are not super intuitive, but I got familiar with them soon enough. The traction control is not terribly easy to switch, and I'd prefer if the rider modes were packaged with predetermined traction control settings like most of the other manufacturers, and then Yamaha included a custom mode you could dial in yourself. One other small criticism is the gear indicator. It is the old school kind that calculates engine and wheel speed to tell you which gear you're in, and as a result, when you pull in the clutch, it doesn't read anything. My T7 indicator just knows the gear, and a slight delay in the reading on the Super T is a bit annoying, but now I'm just nitpicking. If Yamaha completely redesigned this bike with all the latest doodads and iPad display, it would have to cover its R&D costs, which means that it would not be offering this motorcycle at a price 20% lower than the competition with a ton of additional accessories. Ultimately, it's down to what you're looking for. If you want top value for your dollar and Japanese reliability, then this is the adventure bike for you. It will be more reliable than the competition while delivering solid performance and low effort maintenance at a very reasonable price. If you want cutting edge tech and performance, price no object, then one of the Euro brands will be more to your liking. And if you ride with a Super T owner, they can give you a lift home if your wonder bike breaks down. Did I properly adventure on the Super T? Yup. I took it into the deep wilderness of Algonquin Provincial Park and explored plenty of the logging roads and beautiful places I never would have seen on, say, a Goldwing or Yamaha's own FJR 1300, which I reviewed last year. Link in the top right corner. It's a bike you want to take to the out-of-the-way places, provided you know exactly how rough the roads or trails will get. It's not a bike you take on a trail that is getting increasingly rougher and gnarlier, hoping that you make it out the other end. Personally, I always opt for a reasonably priced, reliable motorcycle that allows me to do the thing it's supposed to do. In this case, travel long distance and adventure on the back roads. However, judging by the sales numbers of the big BMW GS, many riders are willing to spend more for a bit more power and lower center of gravity. A lot more. Whether you're one of these riders is up to you. All I know is that if I was spending my own money on a big ADV, the Super Tenere's price tag, list of features, and Japanese reliability make it hard to resist. And it's the only Japanese choice with a shaft drive. So I have to say, I liked my bike's big brother and can see why people buy these big ADVs, even if they are less capable off-road. The added comfort on pavement is nice, and I personally would prefer the Super Tenere to a Sport Tourer or Bagger. It has the highway comfort of those bikes while being more nimble on a twisty road and still having some off-road capability. What do you think of this oft-overlooked bike? Would its price, reliability, and huge list of standard features entice you away from the BMW dealership? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, adventure on, and may the spokes be with you.